So before I mentioned that knowing how activity trackers work might help you with their limitations, in actual fact, they're actually pretty accurate. And so when you're looking at how data is measured, mostly it's reliable, but if you do get an odd result, then it's important to work out why you got that odd result. And so we can go back to the ways that the device is monitoring it to try and find out why your source data might be wrong. When you've got a 3D accelerometer, if you move, then of course it's going to record movement. You could, in theory, simulate moving your legs and creating steps by doing something vigorous with your arms and confusing the device. So you do need to be careful to think about how you're moving and have a look at your data and check that you're not making unusual movements, otherwise you might get a little bit of inaccuracy in your steps. For example, once I've been ironing and found that when I was ironing it thought I was doing a few steps. I'm not going to mention which device that was, but in fact you just need to be aware that if you're getting some funny data, to have a think about how you're moving and what you might be doing to confuse the device. The next one is the light sensor based data. So obviously if you have any obstructions to light, so for example if you had some kind of temporary tattoo or something on your skin surface like a plaster, the light isn't going to shine in. Similarly, you find that at very high heart rates, any kind of heart rate data becomes much less accurate. You can imagine that picking up rates of over 150 or 180 beats per minute gets slightly more inaccurate. The devices are surprisingly good, but when you start to get up around 180, 200 beats per minute, which many people don't really get to in normal life, then you may start to see that you're getting inaccuracy with both the heart rate data, but also oxygen saturation data. And in fact, I had a patient I spoke to only yesterday who said that his Apple Watch is recording low sats at the end of exercise, and it's probably because he actually had a very high heart rate. So in his case, as he felt well, he wasn't more breathless and he wasn't suffering from any illness, he was able to discard that as an erroneous measurement. And that's important. Any data that you've got, if you feel okay and it's telling you something else, then you have to question the accuracy of that data. With GPS tracking, the obvious one is that it gets lost. Sometimes there isn't great mobile reception, and so sometimes you'll find that if you go out for a run, it will lose you for a period, and you may know that there are certain black spots where your phone doesn't pick up. And so in that case, you might get some inaccuracy for some of your intervals, or for the distance, or for your location. And the last one is ECG recording. The ECG recording is generally accurate on some devices. The ones that are approved for ECG recording have a European CE mark, or in America, an FDA approval. In particular, the Apple Watch from the Apple ECG validation study took 300 patients with atrial fibrillation, 287 who were in normal sinus rhythm, and did a visual comparison of the ECG recordings taken by the watch together with simultaneous cardiology 12-lead ECGs with chest leads. They also got 3 independent cardiologists to verify the data and confirm the diagnoses. And when they looked at the morphological comparison between the ECG on the chest and also the Apple Watch, you actually got correctly identified atrial fibrillation in 90% of cases. So in fact, it's pretty accurate. So if you do want to do ECG recording, then you do need an approved device that has been validated for ECG recording in order to make sure that you're accurate. Having said that, again, at very high heart rates, any ECG recording is more difficult, both for cardiologists and also for any AI interpretation of ECG data. And so at those times, it can be technically more challenging to make a rhythm diagnosis accurately. I hope that's helpful at looking at ways that you might explain your data or any anomalies that you find. And I'll speak to you soon.